Hi everyone, welcome back. My name is Khan, and today I'm going to share another heartbreaking story with you. On August 2nd, 2015, a quiet Sunday morning, 39-year-old Jason Corbett was sound asleep at his home in Walberg, Davidson County, North Carolina, USA. His household included his wife, Molly Martins, their two children, 10-year-old Jack and 8-year-old Sarah, and Molly's parents, Tom and Sharon Martins. Jason, originally from Limerick, Ireland, had hired Molly Martins as an au pair after his first wife, Margaret, tragically passed away from an asthma attack. At the time, Molly was 24 years old, and Jason needed help caring for his young children, Jack and Sarah, who were just 3 and 1. Molly moved from Knoxville, Tennessee, USA to Ireland to assist the family. Over time, Jason and Molly developed a romantic relationship. In 2011, the family, including Jack and Sarah, relocated to Davidson County, North Carolina due to Jason's job as the plant manager for an international packaging company. That same year, Jason and Molly got married. The Corbetts seemed to be living a fulfilling life in North Carolina. Jason dedicated himself to his role at the packaging plant, while Molly took care of the children and enjoyed coaching a children's swimming team. In the early hours of that fateful morning on August 2nd, a 911 call was made at 3 a.m. Tom, Molly's father, made the call saying, My daughter's husband, my son-in-law, got in a fight with my daughter. I intervened and I think he's in bad shape. We need help. He's bleeding all over and I may have killed him. A paramedic team was dispatched immediately, and Tom and Molly were instructed by the emergency dispatcher to perform CPR until help arrived. Unfortunately, there was nothing they could do to save Jason. He had died from multiple blows to his head. Tom and Molly were taken to the police station in separate patrol cars. Molly recounted what happened that night. Around 3 a.m., 8-year-old Sarah came to her and Jason's bedroom door, having nightmares again. Molly went to comfort her. When she returned, Jason was angry about being woken up. A heated argument ensued, and Jason attacked Molly, choking her. The noise woke Tom, who entered their bedroom with a baseball bat in his hand. Tom, 65, corroborated his daughter's account while in another interview room. He told his wife to stay in their room when he heard the screams and went to check what was happening. He heard Jason threatening to kill Molly, so he brought a metal bat for protection. Tom entered the bedroom just as Jason was strangling Molly. He asked Jason to let her go and calm down, but Jason refused, threatening to kill her. Jason then turned towards the bathroom, dragging Molly behind him. She struggled, but Jason was stronger. Tom realized he couldn't leave his daughter alone with Jason and hit him in the head with the bat several times. Despite being hit, Jason managed to knock Tom to the floor and took the bat away. Fearing for her father's life, Molly grabbed a decorative garden stone from the bedside table and struck Jason over the head. This allowed Tom to get back on his feet, retrieve the bat, and continue hitting Jason until he realized Jason was dead. Tom admitted he didn't like his son-in-law and had previously advised Molly to get a lawyer and file for divorce. The police took photos of Molly and Tom for their report, but oddly, there were no signs of a struggle, no abrasions or bruises on either of them. This raised the question, what really happened at the Corbett house that night? But first, let me tell you more about Molly Martin's background. Molly spent most of her life in Knoxville, Tennessee. She was the only daughter in a family of 4 children. Her father, Tom, dedicated 30 years to the FBI, while her mother was a doctor of mathematics. In his spare time, Tom coached a local children's soccer team, and Molly enjoyed singing and dancing with friends. She loved reading and, as a teenager, often attended her mother's book club, where she shared her thoughts on various books. Sharon and Tom were a close-knit family, and Molly's upbringing seemed to be filled with love and support. However, the events of that August morning would forever change their lives. Highly educated and quite wealthy, Molly decided to pursue a medical degree after high school. She enrolled at Clemson University in South Carolina in 2003. However, studying turned out to be very difficult and required a lot of hard work and effort. She soon dropped out of the university. In early 2007, Molly began dating Keith Magin, and they moved in together a couple of months later. Molly worked as a nanny and also taught children to swim, while her boyfriend worked at a local nonprofit organization. Their relationship developed quickly. Molly was fun, happy, and carefree. However, both of them suffered from mental health issues. Molly had been diagnosed with depression and warned Keith before they started their relationship that she was bipolar. Things were fine at first. Keith noted that medication helped her with her mental health issues, but then she contracted Staphylococcus aureus. The medication for the infection seemed to block the effects of her bipolar disorder medication, which threw Molly off balance. It was a very difficult period, as Keith said. Molly suffered from migraines and insomnia. She spent a lot of time soaking in the bathtub, sometimes just crying while lying there on the floor. At one point, Molly was taking 16 pills a day. She was unable to continue babysitting and stayed at home. Keith took over, fully providing for them both, even though he wasn't earning much. Molly was now depressed, and every time he came home, he didn't know what was waiting for him behind that door. The relationship became strained. After a while, she got better, and Molly kept saying that she wanted to get engaged to Keith. He took this step for her, thinking it might improve her condition, but he was wrong. It didn't help, and neither did her desire to have children. Molly got pregnant by Keith, but she suffered an early miscarriage in September 2007. By the following February, there was no improvement in her condition. Molly's parents paid for her stay in the psychiatric unit at Emory Hospital in Atlanta, where she was to be helped to stabilize her condition and prescribed the correct course of medication. For days later, she returned to Keith, and they tried to continue living together. By the end of February, there was a rift in the couple's relationship. One night, Molly simply told Keith that she wanted to go somewhere in Europe and work as a live-in nanny. He didn't think she should go away, much less work with children, since she couldn't even go grocery shopping on her own. Soon, Molly left for Ireland, and Keith never saw her again. Molly said that this babysitting job came at a very important time for her. She was suffering from feelings of inadequacy after leaving university and didn't know who she was or what she wanted to be. She was fortunate to meet Jason, who helped her come to her senses and realize her importance in caring for his children. A few months later, Jack and Sarah started calling her Mom. Living in Ireland, Molly missed her native land, so after her engagement, she proposed to Jason that they marry in America and live there, to which he agreed. Tracy, Jason's sister, with whom they were always very close, said that the Molly they knew in Ireland and the Molly in the States were two different people. When relatives from Ireland came to Tennessee for the ceremony, they noticed Molly's strange behavior. She tried to control everything, was often angry, and was not like those happy brides anticipating marriage. Sometimes she stayed in bed and wouldn't talk to anyone. Jason's family began to question whether he should become part of this American family. His best friend saw the unhappy groom in front of him and even told him to just leave, to get on a plane and return to his home country. But Jason replied that he couldn't do that, he had already made a commitment. For years later, Molly was very close to Jason's children and even considered them her own, but her relationship with her husband was strained. Tracy said that in 2014, Jason had been planning to move back home. He wasn't happy here and had started gaining weight. Molly was acting strangely, and he didn't like some of the things going on at home. He missed Ireland and said it would be hard for him to get out. When Molly found out, she wanted to, but Jason wouldn't let her become the children's legal guardian. Jason didn't want to use his wife's citizenship to make a visa for himself, as that would give her legal grounds to claim custody of the children if they divorced later. She later confessed to several of her friends about the abuse by her husband. Neighbors began to keep a closer eye on Jason. However, there was no visible corroboration of Molly's words. According to numerous testimonies, there were no abrasions, bruises, or other injuries, and she did not appear to be a victim of abusive behavior. She was not withdrawn or haggard. On the contrary, she didn't seem afraid of him. Jason, on the other hand, didn't fit the image of a tyrant. He was friendly, outgoing, and generous. The Corbett's closest neighbor reported that Molly had said, "Things didn't fit the big picture," and most of what she said seemed false. Molly admitted she might have lied to others to make herself look good and avoid shame for her words and actions. On August 2nd, still dressed in her pajamas after the bedroom fight, Molly answered detectives' questions and reported that Jason had abused her. She claimed to have gone to the hospital several times but never admitted how she got the injuries. According to her, her husband was verbally and emotionally abusive. Sometimes he sincerely apologized, making it seem like things would get better in their relationship, but the abuse continued and worsened each time. Despite this, her love for Sarah and Jack kept her from leaving him. Molly added that she never reported her husband's abuse because the children were not her own and were not U.S. citizens. Jason could have taken them away from her. Fearing that no one would believe her about Jason's abuse, Molly, on the advice of her attorney, began using hidden recording devices. She claimed many of the recordings she collected had been destroyed or lost, but those that remained were turned over to prosecutors. For example, in a recording titled, "Jason Comes Home Late December 2013, he finds the door locked and rings the bell repeatedly. She opens it within 39 seconds and apologizes. "You never mean to do anything, do you?" he asks angrily, then mocks her. Molly pleads as multiple smacking sounds can be heard, and she begins to whimper. "I hate you," she sobs quietly before the recording cuts out. Molly says Jason had a key but was too drunk to get the door open, and as often happened in their home, the fury would just rise until whatever was going on was all her fault. For days after their father's death, 10-year-old Jack and 8-year-old Sarah were interviewed twice by state authorities. The interview was conducted by an authorized social worker. The children described their father's aggression, ongoing problems in their parents' marriage, and alleged verbal, emotional, and physical abuse on his part. Perhaps more importantly, the children understood and recognized these problems. Sarah, in response to questions, explained that Mom didn't want to wake Dad up, or he would get very angry and say, "Why are you waking me up?" Jack had witnessed the use of physical force by his father on 1 or 2 occasions. The social worker asked a very important question to summarize what was said. Did anyone teach them or ask them to answer certain questions in a certain way? Sarah answered, "My mom asked me to only tell the truth." A few years earlier, Jason had designated Tracy as the legal guardian of his children in the event of his death. She knew Molly wouldn't give them up without a fight. Tracy immediately flew to North Carolina and petitioned for custody of the children, and Molly did the same. 16 days after Jason's death, Tracy became the guardian of Jack and Sarah, and they moved back to Ireland. In January 2016, Tom and Molly were charged with second-degree murder. Tracy believed that Molly learned of Jason's plans to return to Ireland with the children but without her. Then a plan was devised to get rid of him. Molly had long wanted only her children, not her husband. In July 2017, Molly and Tom went on trial for the murder of Jason Corbett. The prosecution offered a very different story of what happened, which did not include a narrative of strangulation and self-defense. Prosecutors relied almost entirely on forensic evidence, which included photographs of Jason's body and gruesome signs of a struggle in the bedroom. According to the pathologist's report, Jason was struck at least 12 times in the head. The exact number could not be given because he was hit in the same spot repeatedly. The skull showed noticeable cracks and severe bruising, comparable to injuries sustained by someone who has fallen from a great height or been in a car accident. A blood spatter expert testified that at one point, Jason's head was 30 or 45 centimeters off the floor and he continued to be struck. According to prosecutors, Jason was first struck while he was still in bed, sedated. Toxicology tests confirmed that Jason's system contained a sedative prescribed in Molly's name 2 days before the tragedy. Additionally, Jason's $600,000 insurance policy had been changed. A year ago, Molly became the sole beneficiary of Jason's $600,000 insurance policy. Jurors were shown photos of the defendants taken at the station on the night of August 2nd. Neither Tom nor Molly had a scratch on them, making it hard to believe Molly's story of a fight with a man bigger, stronger, and taller than her without any visible injuries. It appeared that Tom and Molly delayed calling 911, making up their story while Jason's body was cooling on the floor. Paramedics noted the low temperature of his body upon arrival, indicating he was already cold. No evidence of Jason's abusive behavior was disclosed at trial, and the issue of domestic violence was minimally discussed. Tom testified that Jason had significant control over Molly and noticed bruises on her body but never saw physical aggression from Jason, except on that August night. Before sentencing, Molly said incidents like the one on August 2nd happened regularly, but this time her father was in the house. In defense of his clients, the attorney pointed to a photo showing a red mark on Molly's neck, suggesting strangulation. 2 weeks before the incident, Jason had a physical exam where the doctor noted he had been under stress and complained of uncontrollable outbursts of anger. The autopsy found defensive marks on Jason's left arm but not on his right arm, which he allegedly used to hold Molly by the neck. After 9 days of testimony, arguments, and photos from the scene, the jury deliberated for less than 5 hours before finding Tom and Molly guilty. Both received sentences of 20 to 25 years in prison. A few days later, their lawyers filed an objection, citing judicial errors and jury misconduct, but the court denied the motion. In January 2019, the appeals court allowed oral arguments in Molly and Tom's case. On February 4, 2020, the North Carolina Court of Appeals reversed their convictions and ordered a new trial, citing errors in excluding evidence that Jason may have been violent toward Molly. A year later, the North Carolina Supreme Court upheld the appellate court's decision, ruling that these errors prevented a fair defense. Molly and Tom spent 44 months behind bars and were released on $200,000 bail each in April 2021. It's important to note that both Jack and Sarah, who initially made statements about domestic abuse, have since recanted. They claimed Molly coerced them into lying and that it was actually Molly who was abusive. In November 2023, a new trial took place. The judge sentenced Molly Martin and her father Thomas to prison for a minimum of 7 months after an emotional final day of sentencing hearings. They were led out of a North Carolina court in handcuffs, with sentences ranging from 7 to 30 months for the voluntary manslaughter of Jason Corbett. This is in addition to the 3.5 years they had already served after their initial murder convictions. Thank you for watching today's video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Crime Stories channel.